Welcome to the World Football Summit podcast, the show for football industry leaders who want to stay ahead of the game. We bring you the latest insights, trends, and stories from the experts driving innovation and progress in sports business worldwide. Join us as we dive deep into the ideas and initiatives transforming the world of football. From sustainability and innovation to player development, fan engagement, and everything in between. Our goal is to unite the global football industry and drive positive change and progress. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the World Football Summit podcast. I'm your host, Jaime, CMO at World Football Summit. Today, we bring you an episode I was super excited to share with you guys as we welcome Rishi Jain, Director of Impact at Liverpool Football Club. To me, Liverpool is a prime example of what a football club should represent. Their legacy and values are unquestionable. They have become one of the clubs with higher revenues in Europe. But also, their commitment to sustainability is remarkable. And this is what we discuss with Rishi in a conversation that covers the Redway 2022-2023 season report, which shares the club's commitment to creating a better future for its people, the planet, and the community. So we talk about all those pillars as well as the future of sustainability in football. You know, at World Football Summit, we believe that the football we need embraces sustainability across its three pillars: environmental, social, and financial. And having Liverpool Football Club as a guest today is just an amazing opportunity. Before going into it though, don't forget to subscribe and rate the podcast on your platform of choice and share it with your industry colleagues. You can also subscribe to our newsletter, where every week we send updates, trends, and everything that goes on at our events. You can find the link in the show notes. Remember, 2024 is going to be a busy one for World Football Summit. We have events in London, Mexico, Sevilla. You can check it all out on our website. Are you going to be there? Hopefully, we can meet you there. And now, let's welcome Rishi Jain from Liverpool Football Club. Rishi, welcome to the World Football Summit podcast. Such a wonderful opportunity to speak to you, because we're gonna, discuss everything that you guys at Liverpool Football Club are doing in terms of sustainability, which I think is a great example for the global industry to follow. So yes, welcome.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Before going into it, Rishi, I was wondering if you could briefly introduce yourself, and I usually like to ask my guests, why is it that you do what you do? Why a career in football?
My name is Rishi Jain. Job title is Director of Impact at Liverpool Football Club. Essentially, I'm responsible for heading up our sustainability strategy, program, initiative, whatever you want to call it, which is called the Redway. My journey into football is relatively unique, I would probably say. So I actually started working in football as a volunteer at the age of 14, working in what is now known as LFC's foundation. So that was community coaching, working with young people, literally putting football cones out as a kid. 9.5 years later, the time ended at the club. That was a variety of roles. It was volunteer to part-time to full-time work. Moved over into the club itself to work in the HR team, then the comms team, then back and forth. And that was very much looking at equality, diversity, inclusion. Then I went to an organisation called Kick It Out, which you may know is football's equality and inclusion campaign, very much focused on working with the 72 football league clubs to bring them up to certain levels and standards. And then spent 5 years at Man United, leading their work across E91, and really sort of proud of the time that I spent there. Very much an enjoyable time at Man United. But then the call comes in to with an opportunity to potentially come back to Liverpool. Had some great conversations with people here. Obviously went through a rigorous process. I'm really pleased to rejoin LFC in 2021. That was in an ED&I role, again, solely focused on really bringing the club up to where it wanted to be, where it needed to be. And then about a year or so ago, my remit and my role expanded to cover our entire holistic approach to sustainability through the Red. The reason, to answer your question about why, to be honest, I think for me, starting in the foundation, literally as a child, that's where sort of my boots are grounded. It's where my feet are, and they're very important to me to work communities. And I think working in football, I really feel like we've got a responsibility, which I actually call an opportunity, to use the power that we have, the influence that we have. And this sounds really cheesy, but I'm going to use it to make the world a better place and to be in a role where you can really make a difference for your own people, supporters, stakeholders, community is something that makes me really proud.
I love that. Having the responsibility, but also the opportunity to create impact. I guess usually people speak about responsibility as a quote unquote, if you will, a bad thing or an obligation. But I like the way you frame it, which is an opportunity, and that kind of leads to my next question, Rishi, which is, Liverpool Football Club. What inspired the club to take a leading role in sustainability within the football industry?
So I can answer this, and as partly cover your last point as well. So that responsibility comment is, I use that a lot, and actually I really do believe in it. So at Liverpool, I would say that our supporters, our stakeholders, probably hold us potentially to a high regard, and expect more of us as a football club. And actually, for me, I do see that as an opportunity to push the boundaries, to be able to be bolder, but actually because you're doing the right thing. And actually, that's where the Red Way really fits into that absolutely perfectly. The synergy between being a values-driven organisation and having a values-driven sustainability program works really well. So in the past, before the Red Way was launched in 2021, we had, and we still exist, we have multiple programs across ED&I, foundation, other pieces of work, and actually it works really, really well. But what the Red Way does is just brings them all together under one umbrella and allows us to talk to that holistic approach to our people, planet, and communities. Actually makes it easier to really champion that, but also it makes people and helps people really understand that when they say, what is Liverpool's commitment to doing the right thing? What is Liverpool's commitment to make the world a better place? You can go, well, have a look at the Red Way. There's all the detail. If you want more information, go into even more detail. But actually, it's just allowed us to bring all these really, really important topics together and then talk to it in a really authentic way.
Yeah, and as you said at the beginning, it's a matter of standards. At the end of the day, that's a choice. Pushing your standards to a certain level, it's a choice that any club or property or whoever out there can define for themselves, right? You mentioned the Red Way. What is it? What are its core pillars? I mean, for those in the audience that don't know what it is, why was it important?
Of course. So the Red Way it's our commitment to sustainability. The sort of the top line of it is our commitment to build a better future for our people, our planet, and our communities. What that really means, I suppose, and what that truly means to us is those three pillars, as you alluded to. So our people is very much around diversity and inclusion, how we diversify our workforce, how we implement and achieve benchmarks, frameworks, standards, etc. Ultimately, how we create an inclusive culture for our people. And when I say our people, I mean both our employees, but I also mean our supporters, our stakeholders. Like, what does someone feel when they come to Anfield? Is it safe? Can they be themselves? Can they be openly whatever they want to be without fear of reprisal? And actually, we're really, really strong in that area. Really proud of the work that we've done around how we champion and advocate for underrepresented communities. And I think a lot of that plays into Liverpool as a city, and the values of our city is very much about giving one another a helping hand and supporting those who need to be supported, etc. So it all ties in really nicely. Our second pillar is our planet. So that's obviously where you would expect the do see our environmental commitments across emissions reductions, water, waste management, biodiversity, clean and renewable energy sources, etc. Essentially, how we ensure that we have a positive impact on the planet. And then finally, our communities pillar, which is a bit of a hybrid, I suppose, is a split between the work of LSE Foundation, the incredible work that they do across our local, national, and international communities, working with underserved communities within the city region and beyond. And then what is also in that communities pillar is how we work with our commercial partners to align them to the Red Way and also engage with them on the Red Way. And then really importantly is what we do with our supply chain. So what we're doing with our 4,000 plus suppliers and how can we influence their ways of working and their operations.
Thanks for that. And what are some of the highlights or main achievements that, you're most proud of from the leaders report?
From the leaders report, I'd say there's some really nice headline stats. So 29% on our reduction of emissions from last year. Like every other, and bear in mind, and a 3% reduction on our baseline. So bear in mind, as an organisation and as a football club, we've grown massively. We've in the past approximately 10 years, we've gone from a 45,000 seater stadium to almost 61. We've got 2 state-of-the-art training grounds, one for our men's and one for our women's. We've got a whole host of global partners from all corners of the world. Our staff are growing. Our progression in competitions is growing. And they're all the things that you want to be doing as a business. So sustainability track, and there's a reduction in our emissions, particularly against our baseline, is something that does stand out to us and shows that despite that, we're still doing well. We're still sticking to what we need to. Obviously, that challenge gets bigger and bigger, as with any organisation does. It's a really nice sort of anecdotal, but we call them anecdotal, something I'm really proud of. We switched the fuel over in our first team buses to H3O. It sounds like a simple thing. We refer to it now as a simple thing because it is to us, but that obviously took a lot of work with both the travel provider, but also a number of colleagues across the club. And then from an ED&I and a people perspective, we've done some really good work with the Premier League and achieved the highest level of the Premier League quality standard, advanced level. That really recognises how we've embedded diversity inclusion into our business across absolutely everything that we do. And that also recognises incredible piece of work that we've done with the United Nations, and that's where we take on our responsibility to sort of champion, to voice, to talk to some of those difficult topics around diversity and inclusion. And then how do we do that on a global stage? How do we use our most recognisable voices, the managers, the players from men's and women's teams, to advocate for those who are less fortunate or for underrepresented communities? And that's a really powerful piece of work for us, and obviously very important. And then I suppose from a communities pillar, there's one standout stat, which for the foundation is they engaged with 123,000 young people last season, which was an uplift of around 47%. And as I said earlier, that's where I came from. That's what I'm really passionate about. And actually that just is testament to the work that's being done on a daily basis by an incredible team of people.
First of all, congratulations to you because you're able to actually drive the impact that you want to. Congratulations to the club because, as I said at the beginning, it's an example, and all clubs should follow. What stood out to me most from your answer is how you were mentioning for each example, how you were collaborating with different partners, so the Premier League, United Nations, and that to me is the key here. That sustainability is a team sport. Now, I think the challenge, at least from what I've discussed with other leaders in football, is, involving the entire ecosystem and more specifically the fan, which is, the one that we need to involve most in these type of initiatives. So are there any examples of how you've been able to either involve the fan or other stakeholders that you can think of?
Yeah, of course. So I totally agree with what you've said. The spirit and partnership, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later, is how we truly feel that we will make a difference. Yes, we're a global football club with a global reach, huge brand power actually, but it's through that power of partnerships that we know we can cut through into different conversations. And actually that's where probably one of our strongest examples comes from, where we've worked with one of our partners to increase our match day recycling rates from 25% to over 90%. And that sounds really simple. It does sound really simple. It's simple as working with supporters to put bottles in the right bin. And that sounds super, super simple. But for anyone listening to this who's been to a football match, been to a concert, been to a festival, etc., it's just not necessarily the way people are tuned in to do it. So we did a huge sort of content piece, huge educational campaign, just sort of raising awareness and working with people, just to really raise the awareness of like what these bottles will then become. The circularity message is obviously really strong. So for us now, that over 90%, I think every game this season so far, and even including the games that haven't been sort of regular men's match days at Anfield, i.e. The Foundation Legends game, we've got upcoming contests, etc. We anticipate that every collection rate, the bottles will be 90% plus. And that just comes to that behavioural shift. It comes to making it really simple for people to do that. But actually it comes through learnings for us. So our team and the facility and the store team who run that and are really responsible for the success of that, we've learnt lessons along the way. So it's a really simple one, but sort of shows how important it is that you use language. When the new waste management structure was put out, when the new bins were put out, there's a sign and number said cups. And that for majority people like cups, they can all go in. And actually we were finding we had really, really high levels of contamination because the paper cups that we did have for hot drinks were then going in with the reusable cups that we've got. So actually we had to shift the word and to just say reusable cups. And that's a really small thing for us, but actually a really important lesson for us to learn around the messaging and how it lands with people. And as soon as we shifted that, those collection rates and those contamination levels decreased massively. The collection rates sort of skyrocketed because people understood what they needed to do support, and also why they need to support, how it contributes to the red way, why it's really important, and ultimately what we're trying to achieve. And we can only do that with the support of our fans.
I totally agree with your point about making it easy for fans or anybody involved. Actually, before joining World Football Summit, I used to work for a startup called Trinoa here in Spain, and they did everything related to carbon emissions, reduce the carbon footprint. And for us, that was kind of like the key. How can we make it easy for fans, not only from a language standpoint, but from a behavior standpoint, which is what you're mentioning, no? And so fully agree there. I guess we can go into, a little bit of the lessons you've learned across its 3 pillars, and I want to start with people. So when it comes to that pillar, I don't know if there's any highlight or anything that you want to call out from that pillar.
Yeah, I think on the people pillar, sort of specifically talking about the report, there was just 2 things, and one of them is more about the way we operate. So, for example, we know when we talk about diversity of our workforce, we know where we want to be. We know there are areas that we need to improve on, and that's fine. And actually, I think part of the importance of that, and the reason why I mentioned it on this conversation, is it's that willingness to be able to hold your hands up and be like, we need to be better in X area. Because I think, I strongly believe, if you're not willing to do that, particularly my role, person who heads up the entire work stream, if I'm not sort of feeling confident or willing and able to do that, then what chance have you really got in terms of moving the dial forward? And it's interesting because, like, in the football sector, and I'm sure I'll mention this later again, being in football and in sports generally, it's really easy to focus on the positives, do a highlights report, do a highlights reel, do a report which is all nice and fluffy and shiny, or present a piece of work which is 3 years down the line. You've got through all your challenges, you've got through all your data, and you're at the end point where you're celebrating. And that's not what the red way is. The red way is actually, probably for one of the first times in football, and particularly for this football club, is this is the journey that we want to take. This is where we want to get to. And that's different for us, but actually it's authentic, it's transparent. I'm sure I'll touch on it later. And then I suppose from a people perspective, I would say, I mentioned it very briefly before, is the work that we've done in the United Nations. I think that's a standout piece of work for us. It's culminated in presenting at the United Nations in New York at the back end of 2022. And that's the launch of a game plan, which essentially is how will sports globally use their voice, their platform, their words to influence young people, particularly young men, role model, hopefully from going on and committing some of the worst atrocities that you can imagine, particularly over the US. So, for example, issues around automatic weapons being taken into LGBT plus safe spaces, schools, nightclubs, churches, synagogues, etc. So how can we as a Liverpool Football Club influence those young people at that young age to hopefully stop them from ever doing that? But that also led to that launch of that document, and our support of that also led to us holding the summit at Anfield in the April. So that was in December. The following April, we brought together 100 people from literally across the world. Most of the Premier League football clubs were there. A lot of the governing bodies were there as well. But we also had baseball, we had cricket, we had rugby, we had the NFL there, we had MLB there, we had the Red Sox there as well, we had the Penguins, obviously part of FSG too. And we came together, and for the first time in my entire 20 plus years of working in football, it was a really collaborative conversation where people were joined that day to say, let's share best practice. What are our challenges? Let's talk to them. Let's share what they are, and let's try and solve them together. So that's something that we look at as a full circle. It's not quite a full circle piece, but as a circle piece to say, that's how you can make a difference. The next step for us for that area work is, how do we continue to further the reach of the work that we've done? How do we continue to use our voice to leverage, to challenge, and champion, to advocate for those less fortunate than us, whether that's in the Need Unite space, hate speech space, inclusivity space, or really importantly from an environmental sustainability space as well.
That's super encouraging. because to me, the highlight there is collaboration. That's the key word. We alluded to this before, and you just provided a great example of how not only football properties, but the sport industry in general is embracing this talent, and how top properties, you guys are collaborating, are sharing challenges, opportunities. I think, yeah, definitely that's encouraging. So congratulations on that. Rishi, I want to shift over to the planet pillar, if you will. And one of the things that stood out most to me, at least from a data standpoint, is, you were able to increase recycling rates from 20% or 25% actually on the 21-22 season, 90%, which is remarkable. How'd you do that?
So the work that we've done on recycling rates has been a huge piece of work. So initially, if you start from that 21-22 year when the program first launched, you're talking, it's simple. I say it's not simple. It's bins, it's waste infrastructure, it's waste management. It's funny because in my job, I always joke, I've never talked about bins as much as I do now, but actually you get your infrastructure right, you get your processes right, and it actually becomes a very simple piece of work. So where we're at in that 21-22 period is that literally you go to Anfield, you consume whatever you want to consume, obviously whatever's for sale, you consume that, all just goes into one and all goes straight to our waste provider in Scott. Don't worry about it anymore. Obviously, we identified an opportunity, working with a partner to really push that and go, is there an opportunity for us to be better? It's an opportunity for us to engage with our supporters. And that's exactly what we did. But before we could do that, before we could talk to that, we needed to build our in-house infrastructure and get that right first. So colleagues across the club have done a huge amount of work on reducing contamination levels, engaging with our waste supplier to make sure that they can accommodate the waste, find new suppliers to make sure that if we are going to recycle these plastic bottles, which is what's been happening, are they going to go to the right place, and then what they're going to be made into, so we can have that circularity message in what we've done. And then from a supporter perspective, because they're the key, like we can have the infrastructure all day, but if the supporters aren't going to buy into it, then there's no point having that. It's actually just constant education and awareness raising of what does it mean? Like, what does it really mean if I put this plastic bottle in the right bin? Branding's key, messaging is key. Obviously, leveraging your athlete voices is essential. So we've done multiple campaigns with first team men's and first team women's players. We've incentivized it as well. That works really well. You've got all year round messaging. You're constantly reminding people to say this is what it's leading to. And ultimately, it's quite timely actually that we're having this conversation. We had the full circularity message land this week. So we've launched, and obviously the work is done in partnership with SC Johnson. We've got in stores, you've got Mr. Muscle bottles, which are made, 50% of them is made from plastic from Anfield. And that's cool because it's full circularity. You've got this, probably what is going to be quite a desirable item for any Liverpool fan. And to be able to get a Mr. Muscle bottle with a Liverpool badge on, which actually says 50% of it's made from Anfield. But what's actually really nice to me is those bottles are green. And the reason why they're green is because they're not just water bottles, but the club also saw an opportunity and worked with one of its longest standing partner, Carlsberg. Mm-hmm. And they took on the Carlsberg bottles too. And obviously, you'll know Carlsberg colour is green, the bottle's green, so straight away you end up with these green Mr. Muscle bottles. And that's cool. For me, actually, I've never been so excited about seeing a Mr. Muscle bottle. As I was when it was pretty cool though. It was a couple of weeks back. But for us, that's where we want to get to with everything that we do. You're asking supporters to do something. You put in a huge times, effort, resource, budget, investments, etc., into making sure the infrastructure is right. But people need to know, and my belief, people need to know why. Why am I being asked to do this? What does it lead to? Is it really going to make a difference, especially when you read headlines around targets being shifted around 2030, 2040, and like a societal level? Hear about people taking flights, short-term flights, all this type of stuff. But actually, like, what can I do as an individual outside of switch on, light, switch off? And actually, for us to be able to say this is the full circle message that we're able to deliver, we know that will resonate with our fans, and whatever those bottles are turned into in the future, whether it's continuous muscle bottles or whatever that is, we now know that our fans are fully bought into that. And the next step in that journey is what's the next challenge for them? How do we continue to tell, right, you've done this incredibly, you've done so with a job, we're going to put another challenge your way. And that's what's really, really exciting about the space.
Well, that was a great answer. Because what I take from it, if I could summarize it, is, okay, first understand your why. You understand clearly the why as a club. Then you need to make sure that resonates with a fan's why, if you will. And then you share the framework, which I believe is awesome for anybody listening to learn from, which is, okay, once you know your why, you need to put in place a strategy, and that's going to define your branding. And you need to make sure it's consistent. You need to make sure it's present across the different touch points. Obviously, as football clubs, you cannot neglect the power of the athlete, especially in today's day and age when fans usually resonate or connect better with the athlete because of that human element. It's nothing more than that. And then you talked about messaging and how important that is, no? And then obviously keeping that flywheel, if you will, going so that you always push the fan to, or whoever, to go further, no? But going back to the messaging piece, again, as I was mentioning before, I think sustainability in sports can be complex. So how can you make that message as simple as possible for people to understand and to actually embrace everything that you guys are doing?
So a great example of it, actually, I couldn't agree more, is how we launched the report. And so obviously we've talked a lot about the Red Ray report, which came out a couple of weeks ago, being of April, actually. At the start of weather month. And as we know, like there's dozens, if not hundreds of ESG reports out there, whether they're in football or whether they're outside the sport or whatever. And I suppose they speak to an audience, and I suppose that audience is a specific audience. So what we sort of took on that challenge is how do we bring the Red Way to life for Liverpool Football Club, to our supporters. So side by side, we created two pieces of content. First, with the report itself, you've seen that huge amounts of detail, and we feel that really speaks to the sustainability crowd as such, and really explains like where we're at on our journey, why we're at certain points, and also says like we in some areas haven't made as much progress as we'd like to, but we're committed to the fight, I suppose, which hopefully is as much as people can really expect of us in certain areas. But actually, for me, it shows authenticity and transparency in our approach. But what we need to do is bring it to life for our supporters. So what we did, we set out with a task of how do you create a fun, engaging piece of content, which is relatively lighthearted about this super, super important topic without people feeling it's not important. And so what we delivered was a concept called the team meeting. So for any sort of US office fans, it's pretty much that concept. It's a similar concept to that. Using 6 first-team men's players. You've got the boss, you've got the joker, you've got the passionate person, you've got different players playing on all different sort of memes, inside jokes, all the type of stuff that you'll see online, what our fan base absolutely love. And it worked incredibly because what we were able to bring out in that piece of work is their personalities. And that's what people love to see. In any content, they want to see players' personalities, and they want to see the harmony within the squad. And we felt like we were really be able to deliver that. What was really powerful to hear from our own media team who produced that and produced it from start to finish is actually they felt that because the report was so strong and the detail was so strong, it allowed them to be a bit bolder, to be a bit braver with the content. Because what we didn't want to be, as I said earlier, what we didn't want to be seen to be doing is making light of what is an incredibly important topic in sustainability that we're unwaveringly committed to. But actually, it allowed us in the end to serve two audiences, allowed us to serve the fan base who wants the fun stuff, who wants the engagement, who wants the clicks, who wants to rip up the content and create memes and gifts and all this type of stuff and adapt it into their own little inside jokes on social media. That's perfect. But also, it allowed the world to go, that's a great piece of content, but so what? Where's the detail? And right underneath that is, here's our 22-23 Red Ray report with huge amounts of detail on where we're at with our journey. So for us, it's worked incredibly. Feedback has been 100% positive. I'm really pleased with that. That's not why we do it, but it's really nice to hear that. For us now, we feel like we've really brought sustainability to life for many, many different audiences, and we're really pleased. And actually, the challenge now is how do we top that next year? But that's always a great challenge.
So if I understood correctly, Rishi, it's really the key word there is context, just adapting to the context of each platform of where the fan is. And then that's where you create engaging content, or you create content that's going to increase its chances of engaging or connecting with fans, right?
That's it exactly. Like, you've got so many different audiences now that clubs will speak to. Whether it's your sustainability report, whether it's your financial results, whether it's an article on your website, you need to have all these different voices to be able to do it. And actually, we saw the opportunity with the Red Way to be able to be really strong in our messaging around that because of the strong foundations that we have in the report. It allowed us to have a bit of fun and actually, I'd say, have a lot of fun with the content. And it's really interesting, actually, was at an event last week and with multiple clubs from across Europe, and many colleagues who we spoke to from other clubs all said to me, what a great way to tackle sustainability. Like, sometimes it can be a tough topic to listen to. Some people can say it's quite dry. Actually, they said you really made it fun. And they shared it on their own platform, and these aren't Liverpool fans. And that's great. So I saw something like around over 40% of the audience, I believe it was, who watched it on social media weren't Liverpool fans. And that's an incredible number to see how far and wide that piece of content is going, but also shows that through that team meeting concept, we're able to get out that Red Way message and able to tell people what we're doing, able to talk to, but also have fun along the way and then have really strong substance underneath that.
Amazing. And I'm biased because of my background in that sustainability startup that I mentioned before. I'm wondering, okay, you've achieved remarkable results. You've connected with fans, with audience at panels, but what areas of improvement are there still, you guys need to work on to keep reducing emissions and just keep improving those results?
Yeah, so I think for us, obviously, mentioned earlier, 29% reduction from last year on emissions, 3% in our baseline. As with most organisations, we've got 2030, 2040 commitments. Obviously, every sports climate action organisation has a 2040 one. For us, the next step and the real focus for this next and upcoming season is what's our roadmap to that point. Really detailed, how are we going to get there in this ever-changing, increasingly challenging world. I talked about the growth of the business before. How do we continue to, one, keep our carbon intensity numbers correct, and they're tracking incredibly well, as you'd like to think. But two, how do we ultimately bring down that reduction of our baseline? And that's a challenge for everyone. I think every conversation I have with every colleague, whether it's internal or external, everyone's supposed to be challenging for scope three. And for me, hopefully, that's where I'll probably answer one of your later questions, but that's hopefully where we can see football, sports, brands, partners, regulators come together to really tackle that collective problem that we all share.
And that's the big one. That's the big challenge, definitely. Hey, with teamwork and collaboration, who knows? Hopefully that will get better as time goes on. No, let's shift off to Rishi let's shift to community. I was looking at some data, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, but for every pound that you guys spend on, let's say, community for the Liverpool Football Club Foundation, there's also a return of 13 pounds. That's just remarkable, if that's the case. So I don't know if you can speak to how this, how all your sustainability efforts in the community pillar have contributed to this, or if anything you want to really highlight from the community perspective.
Yeah, of course. So that statistic around 10 and £1 and £13 is just, it's a number that I don't think there's a person in this football club who isn't incredibly proud of that. And what we do as a football club, obviously foundation is separate to the organisation. It's a separate entity from a charitable perspective, but actually it's very much a department of the football club, and rightly so, fully integrated into all that we do. What we do, and this goes without saying, is support the foundation as much as we can. So it's really simple. From a sustainability perspective, we have what we call our key moments calendar. It's around sort of 15 to 18 moments out the year where we really leverage our resource, our support for the foundation sustainability efforts. So you see lots of sort of cross-collaborative work. So for example, You talk about Neutral Recycle Week is a great UK day. That recycling is a great one. For our people, we talk about it, we elevate it, we give people volunteer opportunities, but actually that's where the foundation steps up and does this incredible work to push recycling rates within the local communities that they serve. So my view is, okay, how can we support them in their quest to be bigger, bolder, better, whilst also allowing them to obviously can maintain and protect their incredibly strong identity in the work that they do. So that's one sustainability example. When we talk about it from a people perspective and an EDI perspective, that's probably where it's at strongest. You think, for example, UK Black History Month is in October. Club perspective, we will do content on our global channels. We did it last year with Joe Gomez. It worked really well. We'll do internal learning opportunities for our people, but actually Foundation will then go out and deliver workshops across 40 schools in the Liverpool City region. They'll deliver football tournaments. They'll work with other football clubs. They'll expand their reach, their desire, etc., to spread that message of inclusion and cohesion. So actually, it's super integrated into what we do, and it really helps and supports Foundation with what they do, but actually it also helps us as a football club to make sure that we are, someone said it before, not only actually a responsible neighbour, but also like we embrace our responsibility and our commitment to serve the communities that we operate within. And it's great. And actually every success of the foundation is incredible for every single foundation colleague, but you can't help but feel a sense of pride with all the work that they do. That statistic that we mentioned, 10 and £1 and 13, 122,000 young people last year working with the top 20% proud communities in the city. Like, that's the type of stuff which you all aspire to do. And you've got an expert team of around 100 people led by Matt Pyle. She's a CEO who are doing that day in, day out and really making us proud as an organisation.
Amazing. And as I said, responsibility, but at the same time, the opportunity, to all these amazing things. And it's just a matter of looking at the big picture, how all the different initiatives build the overall success, right? And speaking about success, Rishi, I guess when you look at the entire strategy as a whole, considering the pillars, people, planet, community, how do you measure the success of Liverpool Football Club sustainability efforts? Are there any metrics that are most important? What do you look for?
Yeah. So to measure success, and this was it's multiple ways to answer this question, I suppose. Obviously, in the report itself, the number of KPIs, metrics embedded into it. And what we've done purposely has been what we feel is really transparent about our progress against those. For me, that's a key measurement of success, actually being willing to be transparent, but also being able to report against them. I think a lot of organisations just generally, and I've seen it within previous places that I've worked, you can easily set a target, go, this way we want to get to, but you don't really think about how you're going to get there, or what, if that's a 5-year target, you don't really think about years 2, 3, 4, and what your target is from a year-on-year basis or a quarterly basis. So that's how we measure success from a Redway perspective, is constantly auditing ourselves, working with third-party experts, making sure we are doing the right thing and making sure essentially our numbers are tracking the way that we want them to. Whether that's around raising fan awareness, emissions, waste, biodiversity, etc., all the important things that you would expect. Ultimately, we've got a two-pronged approach, I suppose. How do we continue to be recognised as a leader? Sports positively, we've come during top half for the past 2 years. How to be proud of that? We have multiple recognitions for the Red Way. Last week, we picked up a Sports Industry Award for Environmental Sustainability, which we're hugely proud of, because that's a big one, and real recognition of what we've done. And that's great to keep on leading, to keep on being recognised. That's not why we do it, but it's always nice to pick us from silverware. For me, just as importantly as that is, how do we continue to keep that leadership position, but ultimately deliver against those metrics, those targets that we set for ourselves and have been set by others? Because if we're not doing that, then we're not doing our job properly. So what is our plan to get to 2040? What is our plan to increase biodiversity? And that's where we really, really get into the detail. But at the end of the day, that's why the numbers work really well for us. Not just the emissions numbers, but all the detail that we've given in the report. That's the commitment from us, is to be able to keep on providing that detail, keep on sharing the journey that we're on, sharing the challenges that we're on, sharing the successes that we've had, but ultimately saying this is our progress report, this is where we're at as a football club, and this is where we want to get to, and hopefully years to come, this is how we're going to get.
At the end of the day, if you let me, I think the key for me is how you're looking. Actually, going back to what we were mentioning before, standards piece. You're setting your own standards. You're setting your own benchmarks. You're not looking for external recognition. You're looking for more, hey, we're going to, audit ourselves. We're going to be transparent about it. We understand our responsibility here. We want people to see how we're responsible with this. It's just a matter of elevating your own standards, which is good to see. And
that's it exactly. Sorry to interrupt. I think that's it exactly. So for us, we've gone out there and said this is what we want to achieve. As I said earlier, it's like I don't feel that's not usually what sport does. I think sport generally, and I think we're all guilty of this, is very good at celebrating the end point of a project, of a 3-year project, for example, but not really outlining and sharing what you're going to do from the first day, from day one, from the first year, whatever. That's what we tried. That's what we've done with the Red Way. We've gone out and said, this is where we want to get to. What that allows us to do is then actually speak to partners, stakeholders, supporters, and be like, come with us on this journey. Help us to make the world a better place. Help us on this journey to make a difference for the communities that we operate within, the world, etc. And actually, that's where we've seen with huge success, is how can we actually take people with us and work hand in hand, side by side with these organisations to address these challenges and these opportunities that we've got in front of us.
That's not easy to do, especially in the sports industry, where it's just such a quote-unquote public industry. Everybody has eyes on it. Everybody's looking for opportunities to see and to criticize anything. Where are you guys doing wrong? But you guys said, you know what? This is about us. This is about our own standards, and we're just gonna, in a way, it reminds me to a conversation I had with Real Betis, which has a similar approach. It said, we're just gonna begin. We're just gonna, keep improving, and you know what? Everything we do, we're just gonna, demand more of ourselves as we go along. And are there any unexpected benefits out of this? All of these efforts that you guys are doing in the realm of sustainability? Anything that surprised you, or?
Yeah, I suppose the unexpected benefits, that we knew when we brought the Red Way together, we knew how important it was to our stakeholders, to our partners, etc. We knew that was the case, and actually that works really well. So the unexpected side of things is, I would say, it's opened us up as a football club to those new networks and forums that we just weren't part of before. So, for example, like last year, we're the only football club who was there, I believe. It's cool. It's cool to be a cop. It's a really sort of meeting the mind. It's an interesting platform to speak at, to be as part of sort of 5 events, sort of panel events and on stage, etc. But so what the unexpected side of that is now is that people now expect us to be on those stages, and that's incredible. Because for me, that shows that we're doing something right. And people look around the room and go, "Why out Liverpool here?" Like, they find it quite strange. And that's great, because that shows that you're very firmly at the table. But really importantly for us is, how do we use that opportunity to spread that message, but also work with partners, football clubs, governing bodies, etc., to make sure that we can all collectively make that difference. So that is probably one of the unexpected benefits, is now being expected to be in those spaces where you never really would expect a Liverpool Football Club to be.
Yeah, you went beyond the frontiers of football. Wow, that's awesome. Congratulations on that, because I think that's a great feat. Beyond the numbers, beyond everything else, that just you have, the world looking at what you guys are doing, so interesting. Rishi, this has been great. I just have, I want to be respectful of your time. I just have a few questions left. Looking about the future, and at the end of the day, what are you guys doing to continue leading on sustainability in football and beyond? And now that we just spoke about that, any goals and in general, where do you see the future of sustainability in football?
So what the next steps for us are, as I mentioned earlier, we're in the process to build out really detailed plans about how we address some of our challenges. What I want us to do, in the way I feel that we'll address that, is to use our position as a leading organisation to influence across football and transcend society. Like, the Liverpool Football Club biggest football club in the world. I've said it now, it's written in. But actually, in all seriousness, like we've got this huge global brand which people will recognise. You take away the wording, the colours, the badge, etc. You leave a tiny bit of just the outline of Liverpool football. How do you know what that is? That's incredible. So for me, how do we use that power that we have, the authenticity that we have, the credit that we have to then transcend both football, sports, and wider society? How in the way that the work that we've done with the UN around hate speech, how do we use the journey that we've been on, what we've done to then go and challenge and make things better for everyone, whether you're a football supporter, whether you engage in football, or whether you don't at all, doesn't really matter. How can we go make a difference to not just our own supporters, but the entire world, and do it that way? And then I suppose the future of football and sustainability, I suppose, is what I feel really seeing is how increasingly important this topic is, how embedded it is to governance structures, Premier League commitments. We've been able to contribute and help build that out, working with the Premier League Sustainability Working Group, and work closely with the ECA, and certainly the ECA Sustainability Working Group. You've seen it written into the carbon calculator now, and actually the governing bodies and the authorities are now kind of have really recognised like how important sustainability is. And I suppose my hope for that is that we can continue to contribute to those frameworks, benchmarks, whatever they're going to look like, and really importantly, support the clubs in their journey as well. What I'll never do is sit around the table or sit with a conversation with someone like yourself and say, look how great we are, Liverpool Football Club, pat ourselves on the back. Like, there'll be dozens of things that we can learn from our counterparts, and hopefully many, many things that they can learn from us. And if we can get that spirit of collaboration, best practice sharing our challenges, sharing the barriers that we have to overcome, then I generally do think we'll make a difference for everyone.
You know, where Rishi, the future of sustainability it's kind of like it's football itself. Because if you think about it, football is about how individually my skills, my talent can contribute to the overall benefit of the team. We need collaboration between team members to achieve a greater success. And as a team and individually, I really need to set high standards for myself and for the team, which is essentially what you just described to me about what you guys believe in the future of football. So interesting. And then what about the Red Way? How do you think this is going to be embedded into the legacy of Liverpool as a club? Because, I mean, you guys, I'm not going to discover anything new here to anybody listening, but what's going to be the role of the Red Way in the legacy of the club?
To be honest, I would say that it's a great question. I think the Red Way, it's embedded into all that we do. Business priority, continues to be a business priority. For us, the next step is that we've seen the successes of a behavioural shift. For example, we've talked about that with the match day recycling rates. How do we continue that? So for an example, outside of environmental sustainability, in April, we hosted an iftar fast-breaking event at Anfield. 3,000 people invited, interfaith event beforehand, huge amounts of numbers from not just the Muslim community, but from other faith communities and non-faith backgrounds. And I was lucky enough to sort of get to say a few words to that event, to the crowd and the attendees. And I said, and I truly believe this, is that I felt that was a milestone moment in our football club's history. We're not necessarily sometimes we're a club of first. We're the first club to be involved in the UK Pride March back in 2012. That we weren't the first club to hold an iftar, but I really do feel that was a milestone moment for us in the work that we do. For me, that's where we see the Red Way is actually how do we, and I feel it already is, integrate it into our history. So you talk about history in football, you think about great goals, you think about trophies, etc. And that's great, and that's what we're all about. We want to win trophies on the pitch, but also how can we use the Red Way to make a difference for Liverpool Football Club, society, our supporters and wider. And that's where we want to take it. So hopefully in the next few years of having this conversation again, I'll be able to say, look what we've done. Another milestone moment in our history, but actually something that very much becomes our identity. Someone thinks Liverpool Football Club, yes, they think of our greatest stars on the pitch and think of our successes, all the multiple trophies that we hopefully will win. But also they think about the club's values and its commitment to sustainability.
So it goes beyond football, to your point, beyond what you said before.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff. And what advice would you give to other football clubs who are either starting or they're in the middle of their journey towards embracing sustainability?
To be honest, I'd probably argue that a lot of football clubs are probably already doing it. They're already doing work just in different ways. That was why we brought all the programs together, because we felt that we were already doing it. We had a sustainability identity. We had ED&I, we have ED&I, we had foundation, with all these different sub-identities. Just start to think of, ultimately, where do we want to get to? What's really important for us as a football club? What are we already doing? And then then start to think about what does your journey look like? What you can do, like the Red Rain report is public. Feel free for anyone to look at it. Obviously, we're happy to answer questions on it. If people want to know about the journey that we've been on, but ultimately, for me, it's always about, with anything, it's about making that journey, that program, that strategy work for you and your organization. Because if you try and take someone else's, you take your badge on it, it never works. I've seen that for my entire career. But what is relevant to you, your people, your supporters, and stakeholders, and then ultimately what will lead to success.
Amazing. And I feel I need to ask you this question because at World Football Summit, we launched a rebrand last year. We believe that, the industry needs to become more professional. It needs to embrace innovation, but also adopt sustainability as one of its key priorities across all its pillars: financial, social, and environmental. We summarized this under a claim, which, is the football we want, the football we need. So if I were to ask you very briefly to describe in one sentence, 2 sentences, what is the football that you want or that you need?
It's a great question. I would say the football that we want, so it's all that I want, what I need is, and this probably won't surprise you, is one where we celebrate the very best of football, all the joys that it brings to people, but also how we see more and more collaboration, partnership, supporting one another to essentially give each other and one another a helping hand to be the best version of ourselves.
That was a great answer. And I think that was a great way to...
Down. Yeah. I'm going to have to write that down and use it again. I like that.
I'm going to share that with you, don't worry, because that was amazing. Thank you for that. And I think that was a great way to summarize everything we spoke about. And I want to thank you for the conversation, for all the lessons, the frameworks you've shared. I think everybody listening, the industry is just going to learn so much from what you discussed today. So again, thank you, Rishi. I don't know if there's any last words or anything else you want to share with the audience before we wrap up.
No, that's everything. Obviously, just a big thank you to yourself and World Football Summit for having me. It's great to sort of use this platform to talk to the Red Rain. As I said earlier, we're happy to, if people do have thoughts, questions, etc., I want to get in touch. We're happy to have those conversations.
Amazing. Well, we'll bring you back hopefully in the future. You can keep on telling us about all the developments that you guys are doing, and we'll be happy to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rishi. Have a good day.
It's okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. And there you have him, Rishi Jain from Liverpool Football Club. That was such an inspiring conversation. I hope you feel the same way. Let me try to summarize it as best as I can, because, the amount of lessons that Rishi shared with us today was just great. First of all, I really liked how we started off speaking about the responsibility, but also the opportunity that football clubs have, to influence the world and embrace sustainability, across all fronts, right? Then the need to actually make it easy, to make it simple in language and in action and behavior to actually embrace that sustainability. I really like the framework that we discussed, which is first you need to understand as a property your why, and then make sure that why resonates with the fan. And then you go into the different elements, you go into your branding, you go into your messaging, into your athletes, what role they're going to play. But really, the key there is to be consistent all around with all your efforts and ensure you reach as many touch points as possible, because that's what's going to actually, you really need to repeat your message to actually make it, catch on within society, right? And then once you reach that point, you can't stop. The journey continues. You really need to push yourself to improve. It's all about, what Rishi was saying. They set their own standards. You need to push your standards higher and higher. And this is key. It's not about what everybody else thinks. Embracing sustainability, it's about raising your own standards and putting in the effort to actually be better. But also collaboration. Sustainability is a team sport. Think about it. Future sustainability, I was mentioning to Rishi, it's like football. Once you set your own standards and you want to improve, you need to collaborate with partners, with every stakeholder that you can, and opportunities will arise. And even with fans, collaborate with them, make them feel part of the journey. But then understand as a club what you can contribute to the team. Again, this is like football. Football players contribute their unique talents to the overall benefit of the team. So this is the same thing. And finally, I really like the way that Rishi described the football he wants and the football he needs. Which, going back to football, being able to get the very best of the sport, of getting the very best of us and helping us improve and become a better version of ourselves. But also, it's about collaboration. That's what the industry needs, collaboration about it, with its different stakeholders to help it become more professional, help it embrace innovation, and help it adopt sustainability as a key pillar for the future. Anyway, I don't know if anything else stood out to you. If so, make sure you reach out on social media. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe, rate the podcast on your platform of choice, and share with your industry colleagues. Nothing else from my side. Again, I hope you enjoyed this inspiring episode and this inspiring conversation. I'm sure there will be more in the future. I want to thank you for tuning into this episode of the World Football Summit podcast. Hope you enjoyed it and that you learned something new. Have a great rest of your day, and we hope to see you next time.